Yep.
Good evening. In compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act, the notice requirements have been satisfied. Meeting dates for the year confirmed at the annual meeting are posted on the public bulletin board in the lobby of the Municipal Center and published to the record within the first 10 days of the new year. Copies of all revised or additional meeting notices are sent via fax to the Record, Suburbanite, Northern Valley Press, and are posted on the public bulletin board in the lobby of the Municipal Center. And just a reminder, tonight, as all our meetings are now, is a combined meeting. We start with a work session, and then we quite often move into the big room, but that might not be necessary tonight. The second half is a public meeting, at which time public comment will be taken, if there is any. So we'll start by hitting the issues of to be considered, and I'm going to ask that we table street fairs, because I think this is an issue that needs to be discussed by more than 4 out of 7. So unless anybody has a problem with that, we'll put it on the next work session and hope that we get better attendance.
Sure.
Any questions on the planning board recommended revisions to the LDR? Okay. Well, I will tell you this, that they are very well thought out. Okay. These are usually a result of things being approved because we don't have a method or the ability to deny them. In particular, where it comes to building height, people complain about building height is often, it's the appearance more than anything else, but the builders have had an opportunity to take advantage of the way we allow them to measure building height. And this would be a more stringent measurement. It will improve streetscape and give the appearance of less density. So if nobody has any thoughts about it, we'll move it on for what's the next step, Alyssa?
A draft ordinance has to be prepared, and once introduced, then it goes to the planning board, and there's a 35-day window between introduction and adoption.
Okay, so who does the ordinance, draft ordinance?
Mr. McClure.
Bill? Any chance we could have that for the next meeting?
There's a 100% chance.
Chamber of Commerce request for vacancy ordinance. I think this is a really good idea. We have a number of storefronts that have been vacant for quite some time. First of all, signage, we do have rules about signage. When a business goes out of business, sign is supposed to be down within 30 days or something like that. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the signage is not. But on the other side of it is, if you take the sign down, what are you left with? You're left with something that what's behind the sign might be
even worse.
Well, it's definitely going to be worse. So the question becomes, how do we not protect ourselves, but how do we encourage A, landlords to fill the stores, and B, in the meantime, keep the appearance of our downtown decent? And I think this ordinance is a good idea. Anybody have any comments or thoughts on it?
I'm in support of it, Mayor. They have there are 2 samples. I guess you're going to.
Yeah, I've been looking at the at different ordinances for at least 6 months, because this subject had come up just discussion purposes, sometime, and I've been looking at some. So I have some other ones besides this.
Do you think we could charge you with putting together a draft ordinance?
Absolutely.
I love that kind of.
I think I already drafted one, believe it or not, because I thought we were going to do that some prior occasion, some months ago.
All right, so next meeting, we'll have these draft ordinances to discuss.
And quickly, Mayor, I just want to show this photograph which Christine Nevern, Chamber of Commerce, gave me of a example of a store that is closed and the sign is still there.
Yeah, somebody needs to take that camera away from her. Next is a street naming request from the Tenafly Fire Department.
I kind of agreed to that, didn't we? Didn't we agree to this?
Well, Tony brought it up. It really wasn't on the agenda.
Put it on the agenda.
It wasn't on the agenda.
Okay, all right.
It's unfortunate because about a year ago, the developer did come to me and I passed it on at this table. Anybody have any suggestions? The best we could come up with was a name, what was the name that was on the house?
Appledorn or something.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
if it hasn't been written in stone, let's say, could you send a note to the building department and ask them, you know, do we have to move any mountains to get that new road named after this fireman who gave his life protecting our town? Thank you.
Oops.
The next question is the next question is school borough calendar. I tell you, to see how far things have come along in this world, we were approached at least once before, maybe 2 years ago or last year, about getting rid of the hard copy of the school calendar, and I was opposed to it because just like I like my book here, I like my school calendar on my desk. But I will tell you this, I think the time has come.
I'm
Paul?
always in favor of green.
Would we be going strictly to digital, or it sounded like they want to get rid of it altogether?
Yeah.
I think they want to get rid of it altogether,
Yeah.
basically on the
Use the
premises.
website.
Our schedule is on our website.
Right.
Their schedule's on their website.
And can be updated in real
That's the way,
time.
yeah.
Which, and they are updated, but, and the paper calendar is not updated.
Yes.
So,
I'm
let's say,
all for it.
could we let them know that we concur?
And if anyone wants a calendar, you can always pick up the clerk's calendar.
Last but
That's not like a box.
certainly not least, is the request of the Environmental Commission to limit the use of helium-filled balloons. Now, I'm glad I see the chair of the commission here, I'm glad he passed that, redid it, because I did not like the original one at all. However, I hate to pass ordinances that are going to be impossible to enforce. And I'm not sure exactly who's going to enforce this ordinance. I don't disagree that helium-filled balloons have a lot more minuses than they do pluses. I'm not exactly sure what the difference is between a helium-filled balloon and an oxygen-filled balloon. John, do you have a...
Altitude, really. The helium-filled balloon, the point of this is that the helium-filled balloons, when they're released, they continue to fly in the atmosphere until slowly, over time, the helium goes through the membrane and they land somewhere, and that's where they're dangerous to wildlife.
Okay.
An oxygen-filled balloon won't, or air-filled balloon, which is what you mean, won't fly
Won't
like
fly.
that.
So what happens to air-filled balloons?
Well, they cover the ground and
They come right where
It's not
right where you are.
Yeah.
No, but what I'm saying is,
Float.
the end result of it...
They both, we want them to end up in a landfill, and that's where the oxygen-filled balloons will end up too. Yeah, I think that's what you're leading,
Well,
No, what I'm,
right? Air-fill.
what I'm leading for is, I've been to enough birthday parties to see these air-filled balloons. They don't go as high as helium, but they come down, and they end up creating the same issue as a helium-filled balloon.
Not, well,
Controlled.
Well, they don't float, they won't float away.
They won't float away. They'll just
see, the
fall right where you
They're
are.
usually on
And then you
stiff,
put it in the
like,
garbage.
there are
straws.
well-documented examples, if you don't mind if I talk, but there are well-documented examples of where helium-filled balloons have landed, for example, in forests, and animals have ingested them because they look good, and once they do that, they block their digestive system, so
Yeah.
they starve to death. And the same with fish.
Fish.
So it's just it's bad for environment. And there are also examples. Last fall, a helium-filled balloon shorted out some electrical equipment in San Francisco and blacked out about a quarter of the town. A little bit before that, a helium-filled balloon caused a fire in Lodi on an electrical pole that ran over into the house and caused the house fire.
Would you be able to identify the most
No.
common users of helium-filled balloons? Are those the balloons that the real estate people use? or-
That's part of it, and parties, what I'm proposing is that really three things. First of all, that the distribution of helium-filled balloons be prohibited, and that's relatively easy to enforce. It just means that if you have a real estate agent that's giving out balloons, they can't give out balloons willy-nilly. And when they're finished using the balloons, they have to dispose of them properly. And it also discourages the giving of balloons as party favors to children. Now, that we can't particularly enforce, but if you put it in an ordinance, many parents would simply say, we won't do that. So that's the first thing. Don't distribute the balloons. If you do use them, and we do not bar them being used for either decorative, celebratory, or promotional purposes, that when you're finished using them, you designate, you destroy them, you puncture, you don't let them fly away, you puncture them, and so they end up in the landfill. It's easy enough to do. We propose that there's a requirement that one person be designated, each person to be the balloon burster. But that can be just presumed, okay? So that's the second thing.
And you're going, how does one become the balloon burster?
Well,
Balloon burster. That's my job.
The person who
Take a
puts them
course.
up, the person who puts them up had better remove them, is the point. And the third thing is.
I
that-
put that like a designated driver.
And the third thing is that you take is that what essentially you're doing is you're telling the school, we're mainly addressing this to school-age kids, younger kids, and what you're telling them is that you want to be, think thoughtful of the environment, but it's all right in the case of balloons to just let them fly away. You can't see them, can't hurt anything. And we want them to be aware that
They do hurt.
they do have consequences, and therefore we have this ordinance. It does not, it specifically, I don't know if Bill will accept the wording, but the intention is that it will specifically not affect where balloons are used in schools, except for proms and things like that, where it would affect them. But if it's part of a classroom exercise, it won't affect it. It doesn't prevent anyone else from using it for promotional purposes. It specifically excludes this. It should have no effect on the sale or refilling of balloons in Tenafly, except that we propose to prohibit the sale or filling of balloons at borough-sponsored events. Like you can't give out balloons at the July 4th celebration and inflate them there. So
You
first of all,
mean
you
the
can't
borough
distribute them.
can't?
I'm sorry?
The borough shouldn't do it. That's what
Well,
you're
no,
saying.
we're talking vendors also.
Oh, the
anyone at
vendors,
place,
okay, all right. Like
But-
community night, they couldn't.
Community night, they can't, we're saying they can't give them out and they can't inflate them, but if they want to sprinkle them on the side of their booth, that's fine, that's not fine.
Does that
it's
say so here?
acceptable.
Does that, I mean, is that clear?
If you, I don't have the wording in front of me, but if you read it, it says that they can be used for promotional purposes,
Yeah.
except that when you're finished using them, they have to
Have
be
to be-
gotten rid of.
burster has to get
It doesn't say that.
See, to me, this makes no sense at all. Okay, why would you ban them in some cases but allow them in promotional?
Oh, because for one thing, well, okay, because it's not the pretty colored balloons we're trying to prevent. We're trying to prevent them flying away.
So then don't allow, fill them with air, not helium.
Easier said than done. It's-
That
That's
would be
not-
too restrictive, I think, to say you can't have helium balloons at all. I mean, suppose somebody having a
allow
birthday.
people to have helium balloons for promotional
We
occasions.
don't, that's fine with us, and I'll,
No, this is not public discussion, please.
okay, excuse me.
I just, to me, this doesn't make any sense. It's not, either we ban them or we don't ban them.
Well-
If we, you can ban them and leave them, for educational exercises in the school, that's fine. But if you're gonna allow them in town for promotional activities, but not at borough events, and it doesn't make any sense. You're gonna end up the same problem with helium balloons at promotional events that you have now.
So what happens if they have them filled in Cresskill and they bring them here?
All I'm saying is that when they get finished using them, they should not release them. And if you recall, and I was trying to discuss with Christine, but she didn't have a camera. What was the which was the real estate agent last year, Prominent or Sotheby, that had balloons all over their exhibit, and when they were finished, I believe they just handed them out to kids or let them fly away. And that's the part that we react to.
50% of all balloons, whether the intent is to release them or not, end up in the sky.
Well, we can
I'm
prevent
sorry.
that.
Huh?
We can cut down.
But hold it.
I'm sorry, I'm not sorry.
Who are you regulating? If you have a kid who's 10 years old and he has a balloon, he lets it go.
How do you get the
Who's the one that
How to get the balloon. It's the person who used the balloon who's got to get rid of it, and he can't distribute it to the kids to begin with.
He was out the county. He was out the county fair in the Meadowlands.
Well, I can't.
And he has a
Rather
whole bouquet of balloons. Brings it home and he lets it go.
Rather than a townwide ban or not ban, why don't we just make it a borough policy for borough events? Discourage the use of it.
And what about the
So
school events?
let's
Only
say
Mylar or just or
It's the
latex
damn
ones, too?
helium.
It's the helium.
why not make it a borough
Why don't
policy
we
to
just
start?
ban helium?
Yeah, you can't do that.
It's a lot of hot air.
At least we can start with that.
Right.
I mean, that's at
note.
least that's a place to start. That
When the vendor
no-
applications go out, please note that we are not allowing helium balloons this year.
In borough events.
in borough events.
That's
Community
much
night,
level.
4th of July.
Community night and all, I think even for promotional purposes on
Should just be a
borough-based
resolution.
I'm
events,
sorry,
I don't
no-
think you should permit
I
it.
have no problem with a ban on helium balloons. I think it's well-intended, makes sense.
Mhm.
But what I have a problem with is the exceptions. Why would you allow people to use it for promotional activities? They can use oxygen-filled balloons.
Yeah, what about a florist who brings a happy anniversary bouquet with a Mylar balloon on it?
Well, that's why I was very careful in this, to permit celebratory balloons, because as I think one of the councilmen privately mentioned to me the last time I proposed this, I mean, they're business people, and we don't really want to affect the businesses. So what I've done in this is I've said that businesses continue doing this. If you receive a helium-filled balloon with a bunch of flowers, or the case that you're mentioning, all we say is that when you finish, you dispose of it. And obviously, that is unenforceable, but at least the policy,
Is
the
there.
procedure will be that he should dispose of it environmentally friendly rather than just releasing it. Now, you know,
I would suggest a resolution supporting this, okay? I would also suggest that the Environmental Commission use their space in the newsletter to reinforce
which
this.
incidentally we've done, there was what you did publish one of our arguments, and the current issue includes this among other things.
I mean, I would tend to guess that the two biggest users of helium-filled balloons in this town would be party people, okay, and real estate people, and maybe the florists, okay? So,
Car dealers.
huh?
Car dealers.
True.
Okay, so if you want to make a dent in this, those are the four groups you have to go after. And if you start making exceptions, you're just spinning your wheels. I mean, we have a book full of ordinances, many of which aren't enforced or are unenforceable. If we're going to pass a new ordinance, let's make it enforceable.
Mayor, can I ask John a question? John, have you tried to talk to the school people and tried like a education process for the younger kids especially? Maybe that's where we need to focus on, you know,
Sure,
to
right.
approach them and say, maybe the teachers can do something in class, and when the kids go home and tell the parents, I can't take a helium balloon to Joe's party, they listen. Children tend to be very persuasive when it comes
Which
to
is,
their
and
parents.
that's why I thought that this would have sufficient traction, because parents don't want to violate a borough policy. They understand the environmental impact of it already, but they say it's just 1 million or so. But if the council, if the governing body comes through and says, don't do this, they will listen to it, or will go away with the consequences.
So what do you want to do, gentlemen?
I mean, I like the idea of trying to stop it. I don't know how much teeth a resolution will have, but if you want to revisit all the different exceptions, which maybe, I don't know how you're going to get by the exceptions. I mean,
Well,
I can understand not using it
You want to know
by...
something? You may have been, it was that long ago, you may have been on the council at the time. We did pass some sort of ordinances, it might have been when we were doing the sign ordinances about real estate signs and balloons, temporary signs and balloons, and I can tell you, from the day it was passed, it was totally ignored.
Yeah.
Okay, so the question becomes, do you want to do something that makes a difference, or do you just want to say we have a helium-filled balloon
I
ordinance?
I wouldn't say, of course, I'm not going to be happy unless you immediately pass everything I requested. But Dan's suggestion makes sense to me, that so long as it's not just, that it's a written policy, and that the chief enforce it when applicants come for the community night, and whoever's running the street for the rec department, I guess, for the street for the July 4th fair, that be enforced at those times, that those people make it clear that any vendors or anyone that's exhibiting at those events cannot use balloons. That's fine with me.
All right, so-
Then we do a resolution,
So-
then we do what you
No,
say.
it's basically a policy and not even a resolution. So John, I want you to rewrite this
You have to have a
as a
resolution.
policy,
What, okay.
okay, and we will give it to the recreation department and the building department.
Shouldn't we have a resolution
Should be
to sort of
resolution,
give some
yes.
teeth to the
Baby
policy?
steps.
I would prefer that.
Baby steps.
Supporting
All
the
those
policy.
applications go through the media and events committee that Jewel supervises and oversees. So any application, even if it's community night, I mean, the police and recreation are involved quarterly, but if there's going to be a change, that has to be put in the application of that
Which is what
committee.
I was hoping for.
So that's what we need to do.
So, balloons can be signs and speech, which means that regulations with respect to balloons that have
We're not regulating content.
words on
We're
it.
not saying the words, we're
We're
just
not
saying the
regulating
gas. They
Okay.
can say what they want on it.
Okay.
If the clerk will tell me later on what you're expecting from the other guy,
All right, if she can figure it out, she's a better man than I. Next, anybody have any questions on the resolutions? Anybody have anything for the good of the order? I'll entertain a motion to close the work session.
So moved.
All in favor?
Second.
Thank you. Lisette, we can stay here for the public meeting, right?
Is there any?
Good evening once again. In compliance with the Open Public Meeting Act, the notice requirements have been satisfied. Meeting dates for the year are confirmed at the annual meeting, are posted on the public bulletin board in the lobby of the Municipal Center, and published in the record within the first 10 days of the new year. Salute to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Hayter?
Yes?
Councilmember Park?
Here.
Councilmember Stefanowitz?
Here.
Mayor Russell?
Here. I'll entertain a motion to approve the following sets of minutes. May 9th, the work session. May 9th, the regular meeting. May 9th, the closed session.
So moved.
Thank you. A second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Revisions to the agenda?
We have none.
Okay. Public comment. Anybody care to speak?
I just wanted to echo, Joanna Gamble, 15 Ruby. I wanted to echo what was said about the balloons. I was shamed by my youngest daughter when she was in high school. That's when recycling started. And her senior project was to work at a recycling plant. And I wasn't recycling, no one was required. But she explained to me why it was important. And so through her work, and then she became an environmentalist. And it was my daughter who encouraged me to think about it. And of course, I'm 1,000% for it. I think this idea of working with getting rid of the helium balloons it has to start somewhere. Any kind of new idea, the civil rights movement, was it solved in 1 year? It's still not solved. So you have to start somewhere, and I totally support that idea.
John Worms, Walnut Drive, I agree with you.
She was agreeing with you,
Thanks for
though.
the echo. Any other public comments? Okay, we'll move along. I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I so move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Please call the roll.
Councilmember Hayter?
Yes?
Councilmember Park?
Yes.
Councilmember Stefanowitz?
Yes.
Okay, let's move on to public hearings. 1710, Lisette?
Yes. The following ordinance published herewith was first read by title only on May 9, 2017, and posted on the bulletin board of the lobby of the Municipal Center. Ordinance number 17-10, an ordinance amending Chapter 4, General Licensing, to establish rules and regulations for raffle permits.
Public comment on this ordinance? Alrighty, I'll entertain a motion, please. Dan?
What do I do?
You move to pass and
Move to
adopt.
pass and adopt.
There it is. Hold on. I move to pass and adopt on second and final reading, ordinance 17-10.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Please call the roll.
Councilmember Hayter?
Yes?
Councilmember Park?
Yes.
Councilmember Stefanowitz?
Yes.
Thank you. Committee reports. Does anybody have a committee report?
I do,
Paul?
Mayor.
All right, Paul, and then
Oh, go ahead.
Shama.
Briefly, the library has identified a candidate to replace Gina, and the new director who worked, I believe, in Nanuet will start June 19th.
Oh, so has she been given a an offer?
Yes.
Has she accepted it?
Well, yes.
That was quick.
Paul, will you let them know that at some point we'd like to meet her?
Okay, I will do that.
Maybe she can come to the next meeting.
All right, we'll do that.
person?
Oh, Soon Jung was the
No,
reference librarian. She's been acting.
She's
in
the
an interim
temporary
basis.
or acting
Yeah, so
director.
I talked to her, she's the one who let me know, and
Okay, so it's not her.
she will be moving out.
Right.
Right, she's
Okay.
retired.
Okay.
She had Agnes's job.
That's good news.
Yeah.
Shaman?
Yes, Mayor, I was at the meeting of the Senior Services Committee.
Okay.
This is where they discussed the rules and regs for the policies for the bus. And there was a lot of give and take, and I think Jule was there, so the committee had made some recommendations. Jule had come back with some other options, and there was some compromise, but I think they're moving towards. The committee would have liked it to be a very scheduled use of the bus. Mondays for medical, Tuesdays for like that, because they felt that would be better. But Jule thought, Jule and Bob and Sullivan, they
John
thought,
Sullivan.
yeah, they thought that in the beginning it is better to keep it open-ended, because nobody really knows at this point how much usage, what kind of usage, so it can always then be developed. So the idea was that in 3 months' time, based on how the usage is, they will review everything and see whether they need to move to a more scheduled use of the bus, or it can be a less formal
At the end
arrangement.
of the meeting, I want to talk to you about that meeting, okay?
Me?
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, well,
That's it.
I think it's important also that the governing body be kept, knowledgeable as to the use of the bus.
Yeah, I'm sure she will. I'm sure Jule will, because they did you guys all see this? Because I had missed the meeting when this was passed around, but apparently, no? Jule said everybody had seen it, so
There was not in that format, but there was a draft attached to an administrator's.
because I don't remember seeing this, but she said it must have been when I was not here and when the senior services coordinator's position was being discussed and the bus was, it's entirely possible. But there were specific recommendations in this, and there were issues of, do you allow permanently disabled non-seniors to use the bus or not? But they decided in the beginning, no, then, in the beginning, they want to keep it more controlled, and rightly so. Then you all got to go and sit in the bus, but it wouldn't move.
I've seen it from the outside.
That's it.
Okay. Dan, you have anything?
The Green Team met on Thursday. They are already preparing for next year's Earth Fair. They're determining which location they want to use. Tenafly's turn is going to come up to host 1 year because we're part of the larger group in the rotation. What did I write here? Environmental met. We discussed the ordinance as well. And the Nature Center meeting, they are moving along with expanding their educational programs.
Okay, so we are going to host the,
No, to be
Birthday?
determined.
or it still hasn't been determined.
Demorest wants it, and because we're the most southern town,
Most what?
southern in the Northern Valley group,
It's too hot down here?
they want a more central town. Yeah,
They want a more central town?
to the Northern Valley. Like Old Pan is far.
The commute to Demorest is that much better than the commute to Tenafly.
Yeah, looks
Apparently.
like it.
I think it would be almost embarrassing for us to pass on our turn. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
that's
terrible.
what.
It's absolutely terrible.
Yeah.
And if we're looking for assistance, maybe the clubs in the high school would be willing to participate, or the middle school.
Right.
But I think it'd be a shame to
I
pass
think
on.
location was an issue.
Okay, those are committee reports. We have an introduction to an ordinance. Paul, you want to read it?
Sure. I make a motion that the following ordinance be introduced and passed on the first reading and setting June 13, 2017 at 8 p.m. or as soon thereafter as the matter can be heard as the date and time, and the council chambers of the Tenafly Municipal Center as the place for a hearing on said ordinance.
Is there a second?
Second.
What's that?
Ordinance number 17-11, an ordinance amending chapter 2, section 2-45.8 of the revised general ordinances of the Borough of Tenafly, entitled Off-Duty Employment, and more particularly amending section 2-45.8I, entitled Applicable Rates. Councilmember Hayter?
Yes?
Councilmember Park?
Yes.
Councilman Stefanik?
Yes.
Okay, so the second and final reading will be at our next meeting, and I don't anticipate any issues. And we'll be done. Okay, so the only other thing we have basically is the mayor's remarks, and I've always had to be quiet when some of the mayors talk about short meetings. So I'm hoping that, we can be classified as one of
New
those.
record?
A new record,
It might be a
maybe?
new record.
Pretty close, one of the few advantages of poor attendance. Less yakking. So I want to thank everybody that made it tonight, because otherwise the meeting would have been much shorter.
Memorial
Also,
Day.
a couple of things. Don't forget, Monday is Memorial Day. The parade starts at 10 o'clock on George Street. People usually start to gather around 9:30. Probably sometime around 9 o'clock, we'll be meeting over here. The fire department usually has bagels and donuts and coffee, and we usually take review the fire department and TVAC. I know the honor guard is going to be marching this year. They don't need to be reviewed. They're always in perfect shape. So hopefully the three of you will join us for that. And then after the parade, of course, is the ceremony in Highland Park, followed by the Elks Club. They have their hot dogs and soda. And
So 9 o'clock here, where you said?
Yeah. I was going to just say Reno Denise, who's on the green team in the HPC, is this year's honoree for his service.
Who is it?
Reno.
So we come to Borough Hall at 9 a.m.?
Yeah, I would say 9
Yeah, roughly.
9
And
o'clock
then
is
we work our
fine.
way down the parking lots and then head over to George Street.
9 o'clock is fine.
I don't want to jinx it, man, but are there any rain plans for the presentation? The weather forecast was kind of nebulous for Monday.
No, whatever rain plans there are, I am not aware of them. So, and then the following Sunday is the 5K, which is one of the biggest events on the borough calendar. Over at the middle school, they have a health fair that's wonderful, and the event itself draws a lot of people, whether it's running the 5K, or I think it's either 10K or a half marathon, and then of course they have the dog events as well. It's a lot of fun. So, and by the way, Dan, talking about dog events, I did walk Dean Drive with the engineer, and he's going to be putting something together for us to review. He feels that it's an excellent location, requires a minimal amount of work, and the only question in his mind was parking, but I don't think that's an issue. But it's not one of those things that requires 50 parking spaces. So, unless anybody else has anything else to talk about, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved?
A second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Pleasure seeing everybody.
Yes, sir.
My pleasure.